At a minimum, the Book of Faith and Practice sets down the rules that Friends are expected to follow in their business procedures. So, to some extent, books of faith and practice are rather legalistic documents. I am Tom Hamm. I am a resident of Richmond, Indiana, a member of West Richmond Friends Meeting in the new Association of Friends, and I am Professor of History and Director of Special Collections at Earlham College. Books of faith and practice among Friends originated in the 17th century, when yearly meetings, the highest authority among Friends, began making decisions about what was acceptable Quaker behavior. Some of these decisions were rules that just about all churches at the time would have embraced. It's unacceptable to get drunk. It's unacceptable to commit adultery. It's unacceptable to steal something from someone else. Others of these decisions or rulings reflected Quaker peculiarities, things that distinguished Friends from other religious groups, even other Protestants. So, for example, here in the books of discipline, you would find recorded that Friends have a testimony against oath-taking, that Friends have a testimony against bearing arms. Friends have a testimony for plainness and simplicity and moderation. Friends are expected to use the plain language of thee and thy to a single person. Meetings are to take care that engraved tombstones are not found in their burying grounds. Originally, these decisions and rulings were simply recorded in manuscript form. Beginning in the late 18th century, yearly meetings began to put them into print, and by the 19th century, every yearly meeting has its own printed discipline. In the 20th century, the general tendency was away from referring to these as books of discipline and instead referring to them as books of faith and practice, because the latter term was simply seen as more descriptive as what they were. Almost every yearly meeting of Friends in the world today has a book of faith and practice. As Friends around the world today are diverse, you will find considerable diversity in books of faith and practice. For Friends who come out of the Orthodox tradition in American Quakerism, that which in doctrine is closer to evangelical Protestantism, the Book of Faith and Practice is not only a book of business guidelines, but it also contains a number of statements about what Friends believe. Statements that it is expected you are accepting as a statement of your personal belief when you become a part of that yearly meeting. On the other hand, Friends in Friends General Conference, Friends in many independent yearly meetings who come out of the Hicksite tradition that began in the 1820s, look with considerable skepticism on any authority, even their own meeting, telling them what they are expected to believe. So if you look at the Book of Faith and Practice of, say, Philadelphia or North Pacific Yearly Meeting today, what you are likely to find is a collection of excerpts and quotations from Quaker writings, presenting a variety of different viewpoints on a variety of topics and issues, And implicit in that is the expectation that you will find what speaks most powerfully to you.
I'm here at West Richmond Friends Meeting in Indiana, just to say thank you for watching this QuakerSpeak video. We release new videos every Thursday. You can click on this button over here to subscribe to the project. This year we're asking for your support to help keep the project going. For as little as $1 per video, you can support us. That link is just below me. You can see all the videos we've ever released in this playlist down here. Thanks for watching and have a great Thursday.